one thing you'll notice among many other things, number one, we said that we want to change these values so that they resemble percentages, right? And we'll get there. But the other thing you see, if you look at the original slider, we see these dividers here, right? So these are very helpful because we'll kind of give the users a visual representation, a visual aid as to the chunks that they can increment with, okay? So what we can do, if you hover over on a slider, let me go first of all, close this down, hover over on our slider here, you can see we can also pass, as you know, it's a composable, we can pass values, we can pass parameters, you can see that we can pass here arguments, one of which is range as well as steps. Let's start with steps. So make sure we click inside here, close to the first parenthesis, and then what I'm going to do is put a comma as such. First of all, let's put a modifier because that seems to just make our day. Modifier as such, and I want to give a padding. In this case, the start padding, I'm going to say start, right, from left to right. I want to have some sort of an indentation, so I'm going to 16 dp, that's fine. And the end padding to the right, onto the left, I'm going to say also 16.dp. All right, there we go. So what this will do, it will just indent this to the right and this to the left. That's what we're doing there. So let's see what else can we do. After our modifier, we can pass now the steps, right, to show how can we delimit our entire slider. So you can pass an integer here. For me, I just want to pass 5. So if you hover over here, steps, it will tell you exactly what that means. So if greater than 0, it specifies the amounts of discrete values evenly distributed across the whole value range. And now let's go ahead and run again. If you start incrementing, you can stop there and continue like that. And the other argument we can pass, if you hover over, is on value change finished. We're not going to use this, but you can if you want. What that means is that this is going to be a callback. We can pass an anonymous function, or in this case a lambda, that will be called when we have stopped moving or sliding, in this case the slide. Okay, so we're not going to use that, but you can experiment with that on value changed, right? It's a lambda. You can just go ahead here and say something like log d, or you can do more calculation to say, okay, once they've stopped moving, we can retrieve their value and do whatever we want to do. Okay, we're not going to use that. I just wanted to show you anyway. Let's comment that out. All right, so we have our slider and we have our user interface, even though we are missing this part here, but that part is already done. We've done that part and is at the top. So we can actually call it, let's see, to make things easier, I'm going to call that our top header right about here. I'm going to say top header like this, right? I'm inside of my build form. Let's run and see if that's going to work. And voila. Looks really nice. We have a top header, so the whole application started to look like this. Now we have some a little bit minor issues. Of course, we can change that. You see the padding is a little bit different, which means what we have here on our top card is a little bit smaller. That tells me there is more padding around it. So we can change that. Let's go back to our card, or top header I should say. Say command, click on that, or Control+B for Windows, and we can go to our modifiers and give it perhaps a more and give it that padding that we want. So I can come up here and say dot padding, general padding of maybe 20 dp as such. Okay, well, it looks real nice, much better, close to what we have here. So we can play around with that. Maybe that was a little bit too much. I can say maybe 15 just to see what changes we'll see. Okay, much better. I think that looks pretty close to what we have here. So at this point, we're able to put together the user interface, right? So now they look pretty much the same, at least for what we are going for. And that's wonderful. And I hope you're seeing a pattern of what we're doing with Compose, right? You create little chunks of the user interface and you can put them together by calling those functions, those composable functions inside of other composable functions and go from there, okay? But the most important thing is to remember that along you have to also have this state, okay? Because all of these widgets, all of these composables, they react to the values we're passing in form of a state. Okay, so now we're ready to start putting together the logic behind the actual calculations to actually calculate the tip that we may need to pay. Okay, let's go ahead and get started next.